right? Women are being raped. POCSO cases are on the rise. For example, here in Meghalaya, we see there has been a 65% increase in cases of child sexual abuse. And we all have this question of why does this happen? Right? Why are people sexually abusing children? Why are women being targeted for violence? And if we analyze and introspect, there is a power dynamics that is existent in the relations or in the society between communities, between members. And this power relations, this power dynamic causes violence and crimes to occur. I'll give you an example. About 4 years back, we had a case. It was a case of domestic violence, right? A case of domestic violence, but obviously the woman, she never reported. It was from East Khasi Hills. She never reported it. Her husband was a truck driver. Every night he'd come home, he'd beat her, or he'd rape her. And this went on for years. And he did that, why? Because he wanted to control her. He wanted to ensure that she sits home, that she is there when he comes back to serve him, to listen to him. And she could not tolerate it anymore. Okay, there came a point where this woman said, I can't. There was this one particular night and she said, tonight I can't bear this anymore. So she went to hide in her neighbor's house. She left her 5-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son in the house, in her own house. Her husband came back that night, searching for her, and he knew she was hiding somewhere. And he was calling out for her, calling out and telling her, come home now. Otherwise, you see what I will do if you don't listen to me. She didn't come out. He raped his own daughter. He flung his 3-year-old son from one end of the room to the other end of the room multiple times till when we rescued that boy, that little boy, 3 years old, he had multiple fractures to his ribs. And when we asked that father if he felt anything doing this, he said, no, she didn't listen to me, na. She didn't come. I know that what is the next best thing to hurt her. I know if I hurt her children, now she'll understand. To be there whenever I call her, she should be there. He had no regret for raping his own 5-year-old daughter and for almost killing his own son. And these are our own Khasi people. So what was this about? It was about power. It was about him having to show power to her. And that is why the children suffered. Last year, that famous case in Nongra. Again, a case of domestic violence. What did the father do? He killed those 2 children. They found their bodies. And that is because we are not willing to accept here that domestic violence happens in matrilineal Meghalaya. So when that woman, it's not like she did not go for help in Nongra. Multiple times she went to the police station. Help me. My husband is abusing me. What is our answer always when it comes to domestic violence? It's a private family matter. Deal with it. Call your family, deal with it. And those 2 children lost their life because of this. So whether we want to deny it or accept it, the fact of the matter is that even in matrilineal Meghalaya, where we tend to believe that women are empowered, the data and the statistics show differently. There are multiple cases of domestic violence, of child sexual abuse, and therefore we do need to create more awareness on gender so that we tackle that right from an early age, and we need to also have awareness on the laws that are there to help us. In fact, India has some of the best laws in paperwork when it comes to tackling issues of women and children. But the issue here is lying in the implementation of these laws. Implementation and awareness of these laws. So, again here you'll see, according to NCRB, domestic violence figures as the top category of crimes against women in Meghalaya. I think Meghalaya got its first shock in 2005 when the first data from the NHFS study came out that showed that domestic violence was rampant in Meghalaya. Okay? So, as Indian citizens, the premise of all of the laws that are being implemented in the country come from our constitutional rights. Basic, right? We all, as Indian citizens, we have our fundamental rights, and we all have equal opportunity to ensure that these rights are given to us irrespective. So we talk about Article 14 that talks equality before law. Article 15, prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Article 16, equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Article 21, the premise for all of our laws when it comes to crimes against women and children are right to life and personal liberty. Article 23, prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Article 42 talks about the state has to make provisions for securing justice and humane conditions of work and maternity relief. Article 243D, Article and T talk about reservation of seats for women in municipalities and panchayats. So the Constitution of India is like our, it's like our mother act, right? And it mandates that the states, every state in India must provide security, safety for those who are most marginalized. It provides safety and security measures for women and children who are targeted in society. When we talk about crimes now, right? So we've understood we have the constitutional rights, right? Now, if we go and talk about specifically crimes against women, we have the Mother Act of Criminal Law, which is called the Indian Penal Code. And apart from that, we have special laws. So, the Indian Penal Code is called the Criminal Mother Act, and it covers all kinds of criminal acts that can happen in society. It could be crimes against the body, crimes relating to money, crimes of corruption. Okay, so a broad variety of crimes are covered under the Indian Penal Code. And that is why it is very important to thoroughly understand, especially when you are dealing with crimes against women, it's very important to understand the importance of the IPC. Like if you talk about domestic violence, PWDVA, sexual harassment has a separate law. You will still find them all in the IPC. And when I do trainings for the police, I always say, in your charge sheet, always add the relevant IPC section along with the special law. For example, if it's a case of immoral trafficking, human trafficking case, you have PETA, right? The Immoral Traffic Prevention Act. A lot of times what happens is the police tend to add just that act, right? And they forget to add the IPC. The IPC, like I told you, is the mother act. When you add IPC charges, the case becomes stronger. Special laws go to magistrate level courts, right? Once you add an IPC charge, it will go directly to the sessions court. Once an IPC charge is on your charge sheet. Now, why is that important? That's because a sessions judge can sentence a perpetrator much more than a magistrate can. A magistrate can only pass, I think, 3 years to 5 years imprisonment. Your sessions judge has the power to pass a sentence that is much more stringent. Okay? So it is important to include IPC charges. So if we go through just crimes against women and we're looking at what are the specific IPC charges, you'll see rape is covered under those various sections. Kidnapping and abducting for specific purpose. This section is very, very relevant when we are dealing with commercial sexual exploitation cases, that is human trafficking cases. This is very, very important. Dowry, death or attempt. Obscenity. We've had so many cases right now in Meghalaya relating to obscenity, or you are getting phone calls, you're getting messages, and you don't even know where those numbers are coming from, right? And these are all targeting women. Trafficking and exploitation, assault or use of criminal force to women with intent to outrage her modesty, and acid attack. So those are some. There are many more that can be added from the Indian Penal Code, but going through a very thorough session, maybe in another time we'll just do only laws. And then you have the special laws. The special laws which are supposed to be read along with the Indian Penal Code. And these are the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956. This has to deal with, trafficking, human trafficking. The Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. The Protection of Women from Sexual Harassment at Workplace. The Dowry Prohibition Act and the Indecent Representation of Women Act. Now, we will not be covering all of this today, but I will look into two things, two acts, okay, that are critical here in Meghalaya because of the number of cases that we are having. One will be on the Domestic Violence Act. For example, I've told you, domestic violence, Meghalaya has always topped in terms of the number of cases of domestic violence we are getting. Okay, even if you look just at the Meghalaya State Commission for Women, the files are overflowing of DV cases. And these are not very simple domestic violence cases. According to NHFS 4, there is 1 in 3 married women in Meghalaya who have faced some form of domestic violence. It's very important to understand that when we are talking of domestic violence, in the context of the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, domestic violence is also called intimate partner violence. So when I say that, I mean that it doesn't mean that you have to be married for it to be considered domestic violence. Okay? Intimate partner relationship. And that has been decided by a Supreme Court judgment. Many times I know women go for help to the one-stop centers, they go to help to the police, and they said, no, we can't do anything, you're not married. Where's your marriage certificate? Many times from the Legal Services Authority also, where's your marriage certificate? We must understand that domestic violence is intimate partner violence. We are not looking at a marriage relationship. Meghalaya, we are still very much clouded with the myth that we have very empowered women. We're topping the charts, right? The Niti Aayog report also this time said, okay, domestic violence, Meghalaya tops from the northeastern region states. And if you look at those cases, you will see, and I'm just talking about the reported cases, they're coming from rural areas. Okay, the rural women are getting empowered, they know their laws, so they are filing their cases. But the most gruesome cases are the urban cases, where women hesitate even more to report. And do you know why? Can you just think, why are urban women not talking about domestic violence? Any guesses? Yeah. Shame. I cannot do that to my family. My family's name is going to get tarnished. My father, my mother. We had a doctor in Shillong who called up and she said, I just need to talk about it. She said, I'm going to commit suicide if I don't get to talk about it. But she said, I'm not going to report, Promise me you will not make me report. But she said, I am dying inside. Because of every day after work, going back and facing some form of abuse at home. Why does she not want to report? I'm a doctor. I have patients who trust their lives on me. If I show that I can't manage my own life and that I am facing abuse, my patients won't trust me anymore. My husband is in the government. What name will I bring to my family, my children? So we are still trying to protect the man and just facing that abuse. When we carried out a study on sexual harassment of women at workplace in public and private offices just in Shillong, urban city, we got one case that it was the most shocking case. A woman, a Khasi woman going to work every day, 15 years being raped by her colleagues in that same office. And it was a random study that we were doing, just talking to the employers, to the employees, and she will not report. I won't report about being sexually harassed in office because I'm a single mother, I cannot lose my job. What will they think of my family? And the one answer that all women give, we're women. This is our burden to shoulder. Our ancestors also have done this. It's okay. It's just, if you're born a woman, these are just some of the things. It's okay, you get on a taxi, somebody will touch your breast, somebody will touch your ass. It's okay. Live with it. You're a woman. You shouldn't be too emotional about these things. That is what society is teaching our young girls. And so we grow up also believing that, oh, I'm a woman because I have breasts, men are allowed to touch it. And so we get raped every day that we go to work and we still don't report it. Because what is our mindset? Our mindset, socially our mindset has become, this is the burden that I will bear because I am a woman. So when going back to domestic violence, remember domestic violence is not just physical abuse. Okay? Many times I've heard the police ask, how many times he slapped you? Oh, where's the scar? No, you don't have scar, it cannot be domestic violence. Many times. But domestic violence encompasses emotional, financial, mental abuse as well. Verbal abuse is also domestic violence. It is not necessary that domestic violence is physical abuse. Mostly in Meghalaya, we have seen women will only report it when it's too late. They prefer to go to a counselor rather than to speak to lawyers or to file a case. The criminal justice system is working against victims, so there's no point in filing a case. And they are not aware of the remedies available to them. Let's be honest, all of us sitting here also. Once we have to think about going to police station to file FIR, already we are like, oh my gosh. Go to police station, go to court, find a lawyer, how many times go to court? The matter will keep getting adjourned, right? That is our immediate. And we have what we call a broken public justice system. The pipeline of the public justice system is not working. That needs to be fixed, and that's a separate session altogether talking about that. But the domestic violence, the PWDVA Act of 2005 has made it easier for women now to file cases. So they're saying, fine, the criminal justice system is tedious, it's lengthy, it's expensive. Here we're giving you a civil remedy to deal with domestic violence. Every district will have a protection officer. In Meghalaya, our protection officers are all at the one-stop centers now. All the center administrators are the protection officers. You have to go to the protection officers. You file what is called a domestic incident report. It's not an FIR anymore. It's a DIR. A DIR can be filed. Protection orders will be passed. Maintenance, custody, those issues will be looked into. Okay? But your husband is not going to be sentenced. Okay? Civil remedies can provide civil sentences. Okay? Like monetary compensation, protection orders. But they cannot arrest or imprison the perpetrator. So for arrest and imprisonment, you would still have to go through the criminal route and file an FIR. So most of the cases of domestic violence in Meghalaya are physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, and emotional abuse. Many cases of financial abuse. No money being given to the woman to maintain her children. The man goes from one place to another place. He has just left his children. How do they survive? So at some point we need to curb this. And yes, we have a lot of cohabitation in Meghalaya, right? There are many cross-cutting issues, teenage pregnancy, cohabitation. We have to deal with all of those issues also if we want to tackle domestic violence. We all know what is happening right at the rural area. A man goes from one house, impregnates her, he's gone to the next house, and they get away scot-free with that. When we ask women, many times we've asked women, what's the name of your husband so that we can file maintenance order? She doesn't know. She calls him Badeng, Barit, Pado, whatever. She doesn't even know his name to file for maintenance of the children. So how do we tackle this in tracing that? So there is a very warped, something is going on in our society, and these root causes have to be tackled if we want to address issues of gender-based discrimination and we want to address issues of sexual crimes. So next time you're going to ask yourself, why are children being raped? Who are children being raped from most? Child Commission. Who is the perpetrator mostly of child sexual abuse? Okay.
We're not seeing it happen when it's related. Sometimes it's still this, because most of the time we see these kinds of coincidence, kinds of actually the kinds of opportunity rather than about power or after enhancing his power over his reason. We are still looking at it. We are actually asking relationship status of we are looking at it. But as far as we see, there are no, there's no actual major data that can point to that.
West Khasi Hills also? So, in other states, and this is quite universal, child sexual abuse, the perpetrator will always be someone known to the child. He'll never be a stranger. Yeah. Right. Always someone known to the child who forms a relationship of trust with that child. And it'll be nice when the Child Commission comes up with that study of the data they collect. Because from the news reports, a lot of what I'm seeing and from our outreach workers in West Khasi Hills, there's a lot of cases that are happening, whether it's the stepfather, the grandfather, or someone. We had a case of a 9-month-old baby, Ganesh Das Hospital, raped by the grandfather. And it really was, what happened in this particular case actually was the mother had to work. She was a daily wage earner. She had to work. So did the father. And so she thought, of course, the safest people to keep my child with is the grandparents. And this is urban Shillong. So I'm keeping, my child is safe. 9-month-old, she's safe. She's with her grandfather and grandmother at home. Then one day she comes, we have the one-stop center in Ganesh Das called Yolimpi. The woman comes, she brings her 9-month-old baby bleeding profusely from her vagina. Baby can't tell us anything, so it became so difficult also for the doctors. But under observation for many days, we noticed that every time that the grandfather would walk into the room, that baby would scream, like uncontrollable 4-5 hours screaming once she saw his face. And that's when, and all the doctors in Ganesh Das, by the way, have been trained on how to identify cases of violence and of crimes. And that's when the doctor got an alert. And she said, there's something missing here. Why is that child crying like that when the grandfather walks in? Called the police, interrogated. The mother knew about it. And so did the father. The father knew about it always. The mother kind of had an idea. And even after the grandfather admitted to raping the 9-month-old baby, the mother refused to file an FIR against her own father. She said, because as Christians, we do not file cases against our own family. Of course, a suo motu case was filed in the end. The grandfather is in jail. But again there, the mindset of the woman. Her own daughter, 9 months old, and she said, no, I'm not filing an FIR against my own father. Okay? So, there, again, there's an issue with our mindsets, the way that society has suppressed women, where we also feel scared to stand up for our own sometimes. Okay? And that is something else we must introspect where we're going wrong. If we are saying, as Khasis, I also like to say we're very empowered. Okay? We're very empowered compared to women elsewhere. But we are not empowered in the right sense of the term, that we are able to take decisions for ourselves. We are empowered in the sense that we have freedom of mobility. We have freedom of mobility here, the women in Meghalaya. We can go anywhere we want to study, we can study. But freedom of mobility does not mean a freedom from a violent-free life. We have freedom of mobility. But that does not mean we are not facing violence or some forms of violence in our lives. Because if, honestly, we were truly empowered, as women, we would not be having rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment. There wouldn't be all these. We would be living very peacefully with our own gender identities, men, women, peaceful cohabitation. We won't have all these kind of cases. Now, domestic violence, when you face it, causes a lot of reproductive health rights issues, and there's also the consequences of a number of mental health issues. Now, when we initially in 2005, no one believed that Meghalaya would have domestic violence. So, when work started in Meghalaya, it didn't start on violence. We thought women here don't face violence. So, work was started on reproductive health rights. Right? We were looking at reproductive health. Because why? We are having, so many births. There are issues with infant mortality, maternal mortality. And a survey was done by an NGO called Northeast Network, and they went to various villages, different districts of Meghalaya, talking to women about reproductive health. And when they spent time with those women in their homes, staying with them overnight, that's when they realized these women are all facing reproductive health rights or health issues because of the domestic violence they're facing. And there is a study to prove this for Meghalaya. It was done with Ganesh Das Hospital and Yolanti, where even the doctors have given their case studies. Women are coming back pain, acidity, gas. Medicines are not helping. Continuously taking medicines for acidity, for gas, back pain, when actually the root cause was what? Domestic violence. And it was only when we tackled the issue of the violence that they were facing at home did their medical condition also get better. Only through that. And that is why Meghalaya has been one of the first states in India where the health department, and I wish our health department people were here today, who have openly sent out a notification saying that domestic violence is a public health issue. Domestic violence is a public health issue. It is not a social welfare or a welfare issue. Okay? It's a public health issue, and it was for this reason that Meghalaya was one of the first states to ensure the institutionalization of one-stop centers in every civil hospital of the district. We have one-stop centers in every civil hospital in this district, because a woman will never go talk about the domestic violence she's facing to the police or to any other legal service authority. She can go to the doctor, she can go to a counselor, and we need to give them that support from there. And that's why the one-stop centers are there. So the attitude of society to domestic violence, we hear this all the time. We've worked with a number of Darbar Shnongs. It's a private family matter. You mind your own business. They mind their own business. Stigma is attached to the family. Forbidden to speak of due to religion. Women must uphold the family honor, and women must bear it silently. And these points are not given by me. These points are given by women themselves. For example, I don't know if you all still remember when that village administration bill, highly debated, had come about from the KHADC, where they said, 33% reservation for women, this, that. Most of the women said, hey, listen, we don't want to become Rangba Shnong, We don't want. Please don't force that on us. We have enough on our plate, taking care of child, taking care of the family, the khun khado, take care of everybody in the family. Plus we work. And then now, you want to talk about giving us power at that level? Yes, that is what we want, because that is where we'll reach equity and equality, the road to all of that. But we are not tackling at root the gender discrimination that's happening. Are we talking about shared care for the children, shared care at the household level? Some women are privileged, and we must recognize that privilege, that we have support systems, but a handful of privileged people will not be able to talk about the rest of the women in Meghalaya, right? So we must introspect among ourselves also what privilege we have that we can be here, but just because we have that privilege, it does not mean that the rest of the women in Meghalaya have the same privilege as we do. It also doesn't mean that because we have privilege, we don't face violence. Okay? So, women upholding family honor, women upholding the honor of your father's name, your husband's name, that is still very much prevalent here in Meghalaya. Okay? So before I go to the next law, that is on sexual harassment, are there any questions or points of debate? Do we recognize domestic violence as an issue? As per the Meghalaya police data on POCSO, the actual POCSO, just reporting of POCSO cases. So Meghalaya police, and that's why the Meghalaya police is trying to get, because they can only get reported cases to them, right? They can't get all the, so if we're seeing a 65% increase, that it's probably 85. Because 65 means the police are only taking the cases that are coming to their police station. Right? They're not getting the cases that come to the NGOs. They're not getting the cases that come to the Dorbar. They're not getting the cases that come to the Child Commission. Although now I know the Child Commission is starting to collate all of that and getting all of it. So that's a huge, there's this, the POXO Act, when we talk about Section 19, we had a huge roundtable conference with Noor Khan, also at that time when he was the member secretary. Section 19 that talks of mandatory reporting under POXO, we had to do a session on POXO, is causing us so much, it's causing us so much trouble, right? And what we are trying to do is ensure that the Meghalaya, see, to every act there are rules, okay? Like, even here today, we're talking about sexual harassment, PWDVA, we're talking about SHWWP, we're talking about POXO. These are applicable all over India. Maybe not, and if it is, then they'll say, okay, Jammu and Kashmir, it won't apply in this and that. Applicable to all of India. When they come to a particular state, the state has to make rules to that act. Section 19, we need to think, brainstorm many stakeholders together, whether we need to amend the rules, Meghalaya's rules, to POXO. Because we have a lot of cohabitation. We don't have sexuality. I'm not going to say sex education because everybody understands it differently, but sexuality education in school, because whether you like it or not, your children are probably having sex by the age of 30. Okay? Without knowing about contraceptives, without knowing about safe sex, sometimes not even knowing what is sex at all. But they are all in intimate sexual relationships. And we need to be open to that. Right? We've had cases, so I feel you from the Child Commission. We've had cases where unfortunately they are teenagers who are in love, but the guy gets taken away and he gets kept in juvenile, and then the girl, she doesn't want to eat anymore. We've had cases where the adolescent centers, the RKSK program of NHM, like the girls are not even willing to come anymore to talk, okay, because they know that once I talk to this counselor, she's going to report my boyfriend and he's going to get locked up. Because of Section 19 of POXO that talks of mandatory reporting. If you see any child or you have some doubt that this child is being sexually abused, you have to report the case. Okay? So here, since we are only talking about laws, let us just see Section 19 as that we must report cases of child sexual abuse. But that there are issues and challenges to that, we all, I think, are very, very aware that is happening. Okay, so should I go to the next one? I'm just going to take 10-15 minutes and then we get into. So we're talking about sexual harassment of women at workplace. Unbelievable, right, that something like this would happen in Shillong. We have most of Meghalaya, we have a huge women workforce, right? Be it formal or informal, our workforce is a lot. Our workforce is a lot. Why? Women have freedom of mobility. Correct. We have women here, we have women here, but we never have women here. Where will you see women up there? And that's why let's not kid ourselves by saying that we are empowered. Okay? We have 3 women in the Legislative Assembly. Ask women know why they don't stand for elections. They'll tell you. If I stand for elections, who's going to take care of the children? Who's going to take care of my ailing mother or father? Who'll cook? Then if I stand for elections, at home, forget. No one's going to cook. The clothes will not be washed. Who's going to pay the bills? All of them will come out with those answers. So we lack support system, and we still believe that women's responsibilities at the end of the day are those. So even if we look in the Dolbash now, second, hey, please make sure that for this program, tea is ready, food is ready. Those are second hey roles. Okay? Don't talk so much about governance and political decision making. Just make sure the tea is ready when the chief guest comes. That's it. Open a center, please, second hey, wear pink. Pink jansem. Wear purple. Very gendered. We're still very gendered, whether we want to accept it or not. So, our bosses at the top level are still men. Very rare, we have women. And then we have women at this level and at this level. Lots, because Meghalaya has a good workforce, women workforce. That creates power. You've sat 2 days, you see it does create a power dynamics. Okay? And therefore, we have a lot of cases of sexual harassment that women never knew was sexual harassment at workplace. We only started knowing about sexual harassment. This law came about in 2013. And we have some intelligent women. And that is why they filed cases against the governor of Meghalaya, Forest Office, Agriculture Office, AG. And I'm only talking about cases that have come out in the newspaper. Right? We've all seen those sexual harassment cases, and Nehu, it's like all the time in the newspaper. So Nehu case was so unfortunate because all those 5 girls gave up their PhD. They gave up their PhD, and that's why we say, when we talk about sexual harassment, it is not about power, it is not about sexual attraction, but about power dynamics. Somebody who is sexually attracted to you, who has fallen in love with you, is not going to use you in your workplace. Okay? If I take the case of the PhD scholars, the research scholars in Nehu, they're not going to use you to tell you, please come to my cottage at this time of the night. Please go buy me my underwear. Because, I'm a professor, I have no time to shop apparently for my own underwear. Please give me a massage. Because I'm so tired from sitting in my chair the whole day. Right? That is what they were facing. And they faced it till the point where they said, forget PhD, I'm going back home. I cannot take this harassment. And what does that cause? That causes loss of livelihood, career opportunities are lost. The woman who goes to work for 15 years getting raped, she's facing mental trauma. She will break down one day. She's just being strong right now. She will break one day. Okay? So, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act came about in 2013 to look into the prevention, prohibition and redressal. Okay? We are preventing sexual harassment, prohibiting it, and also providing a mechanism within your offices to ensure sexual harassment is dealt with. So from all of y'all here, how many of y'all know what is your redressal mechanism on sexual harassment? No, because your offices, all of y'all come from government offices. There's been a notification from the office of the governor. What's your redressal for sexual harassment? For Posh? Police? Do you all know of the redressal mechanism? Has your office ever done a sexual harassment? No? So every office which has more than 10 employees is supposed to have an internal committee. All the employees are supposed to be made aware of sexual harassment of workplace. They are supposed to receive the notification of who are the members of the Sexual Harassment Committee, the IC committee, with their phone numbers. Okay? It is mandatory. Every office must have an internal committee. Police, you all have the committee. Okay? So ask about it. It's very important. Now, when we are talking of sexual harassment, we have to be very careful of three words, and the three words are unwelcome, unwanted, and unlawful. Critical words when we are talking of sexual harassment. Unlawful, everybody will understand, right? It's prohibited by law, means something must be written. Unwelcome and unwanted means there is an act being done that the woman feels in a professional setup like an office or an educational institution. It is unwelcome and unwanted to her. Okay? There was a case of an expat who was working in Meghalaya as a consultant with a government department. They came back from Christmas break, one of the bar in office. He went to her, touched her, and he said, "You've put on weight in all the right places. You look really good, especially your upper body." She filed a sexual harassment case against him, and she won it. Do you think that was appropriate for somebody to say in the office? No. And he said, "Oh, no, it's okay." In his defense, he said, why is she saying this is sexual harassment? She should be happy, no, a man is complimenting on her body. Imagine. And she's like, "I don't know what you all feel here in India, that people can make judgments of your body so openly in office." But she said, "I will not stand for this, that a man can come up any time and feel he has the right to judge my body. It is unwelcome, and in a professional setup, it is unwanted." And she won that case. Okay? So women employees who are covered, again, this is a big misconception in the government where, "Oh no, she's just contractual." No, this one, not regular staff. Therefore, it's not sexual harassment of our department. But the Act says all regular, temporary, ad hoc employees, they can be directly or indirectly employed. All employees with express or implied terms of engagement, that can also include your interns and all. Anybody who's working, who's doing something in your office that creates a working relationship, it could be the kongs who come from outside, okay, and are serving tea to you. If you sexually harass them while they are serving tea to you, mind you, that is the case of sexual harassment in your department. And we had a case, it is brilliant one, fruit seller actually. She used to go to this particular office and sell fruits, those kongs who come to our office with the shang, bringing fruits, bringing things. She was always sexually harassed whenever she would go to this particular room. And now there's a lot of awareness on sexual harassment, and she actually filed a sexual harassment case. She's like, I will not accept this. I might be an illiterate woman who's working in the streets, but that does not mean that when I go and serve you your fruits for you to buy from me, you get to touch me everywhere. And she also won that case. Okay? Working relations exist in any place. It could also be your homes. So you all have domestic workers, right? You all have helpers and assistants. The SHWWP Act also covers them. It covers both private, formal, non-formal and informal workers. So you see in Police Bazaar, we have had so many sexual harassment cases. You have these little cars who are selling stuff nowadays. They sell vegetables, now they're selling maize and corn. All of them, a lot of the shops in Police Bazaar also, the women employees are facing a lot of sexual harassment and they are starting to complain about it. Sexual harassment can be non-verbal, verbal, textual, physical, graphic and electronic. Okay, so we understand quite easily non-verbal. In a particular hotel here in Shillong, we had a general manager. This was the lobby for the women employees to enter the hotel. He made sure every day at 9:30 he is standing right here. And as they walk, he's touching them. 15 girls all filed sexual harassment case. What is the need for him to stand there every morning and touching them as they enter the office? And he actually thought he would get away. He was the HR manager and he's like, I'll just kick you all out of your jobs. He actually threatened them saying that if you say anything, I'll kick you all out of your jobs. But those girls, luckily enough, knew about this act. And then who got kicked out? He got kicked out instead. Verbal, so that was non-verbal. He didn't say anything. He never used to say anything to them. He just stood there and touched them every time they walked in. Verbal is easy. Something is being, said. Textual, they text you inappropriate messages or send you inappropriate forwards. Physical, everybody knows, means there's been some touching. Graphic and electronic. Okay? Now, I'll give you an example of this. In a particular school, educational institution, the PT teacher, who was a man, decided that every morning he would send naked pictures to the maths teacher. She was a woman. And he would send pictures of naked people doing yoga. Okay, to her. She filed a sexual harassment case under graphic. He never used to write anything. He just sends her those pictures. And she won that sexual harassment case. Because he, of course, his defense was like, I am a yoga enthusiast, so I thought that she also should take it that way because usually people do yoga naked. It's not necessary to do yoga naked. And it's not necessary to send your colleagues also such images. It is inappropriate, it is unwelcome, it is unwanted as well. Okay? So that is forms of graphic, of electronic. You have so many videos nowadays, of just going around. The police, Meghalaya police has also sent an alert, right? Because everyone's getting these photos of naked girls in their phone numbers, right? So, acts of sexual harassment are divided into two categories. We talk of quid pro quo and we talk of a hostile work environment. Quid pro quo, very easy, this for that. Most of our cases we've seen is quid pro quo. Come to Shillong Club with this file at this time. While you come at 10 o'clock, please also make sure to have a drink and entertain some of my friends. That's been one case that's come out recently. Bring that file. I will only sign that file in Shillong Club at 10 p.m. That's it. Hostile work environment, like I said, that's where unwelcome and unwanted come in. And here is where mostly, when we're talking of hostile work environment, that is where people are making a mistake in understanding whether it is sexual harassment or not sexual harassment. And that is why I urge you all to go back to your departments. Please have an awareness on sexual harassment where an external person can come and we can clear out all these doubts, okay, of what really is a hostile work environment, what is sexual harassment. It is very important, not only just for yourself, but also for your colleagues, your students, your colleagues, the Kongs who come to your office. It is important that we know it is a problem that we are facing here in Shillong especially, so it is important to be aware so that you can stop it before it goes too far. Employers are all those who head any government organization, department, local authorities, anyone in managerial or supervisory position. We have the internal committee and the local committee. The local committee sits at the DC's office. The local committee everyone goes to when there is a case that comes from any place with less than 10 employees. Okay? So right now our DC in East Khasi Hills is a woman, and that's why our DC is heading this local committee, and she takes up most of the cases that are coming from the Police Bazaar and, Polo and all these markets. Presiding officer will always be a senior level woman. You will have 2 members from women employees, or at least half of the women in the committee, half of the committee members must be women. And most importantly is you must have an external person in the committee of your office. When we talk about internal committees, understand that the internal committee is a quasi-judicial authority. Now, when I say that, I mean that you have the power of a civil court. You form an IC in your office. That IC is of Agriculture Department. I get it. Agriculture Department has formed that IC. But when the members of that IC sit for a case, they have to put on a different hat. At that time, they are performing their role in a quasi-judicial manner, not as employees of Agriculture Department. And that's important because a lot of times, the cases that you will get are of your colleagues, of your bosses, and you have to keep that separate to the case that is being tried. It is mentally very, very difficult actually, and emotionally very difficult to be in these cases. Written complaints have to come within 3 months according to the Act. The inquiry has to be completed in 90 days. For domestic workers at the LC, it is 7 days. The IC must submit a report within 10 days to the employer, and the employer has to act on the recommendation within 60 days. Failure to do this will cause punitive actions such as fines, cancellations, etc. And there has to be an appeal to the appellate authority in court. Okay, so either the man or the woman can appeal to the court if they are not happy. So it is important, I'll tell you, to have these ICs. It is important to follow the law on sexual harassment of women at workplace, because very recently we had a particular department also who was actually fined 50,000 rupees because they had not constituted an internal committee. Meghalaya has made a lot of noise. Today morning, who saw the newspaper? Did you see? We ranked last in the smart cities, right? So we're always coming second poorest. I mean, it is starting to become like a trend, okay? And in the beginning of this year, We had Niti Aayog say Meghalaya last in gender, right? Our gender equality index. Then sexual harassment of women at workplace. Meghalaya has beat like UP and everywhere with the number of cases, okay, which we can all reason out here. We have maybe more working women, right? Or we have more women who now are aware of their rights and therefore reporting. Whatever it is. But it is not nice to be tagged, okay, these things every day looking at the newspaper. Let's not talk where we're up, we're just always down, okay? And even crimes against women and children, always right down. So, in the beginning of this year, I think they got a shock that Meghalaya, they were still okay, that Meghalaya has domestic violence very high, Meghalaya has POCSO very high. When they heard that Meghalaya has the highest, the data came out, that Meghalaya has the highest cases of sexual harassment of women at workplace, that's when they were like, that's enough. Okay? And so the NCW started coming in, and the NCW asked the government of Meghalaya, give us all the annual reports from every department, be it government, non-government, give us who are the members, what kind of awareness has been done, and till now we are trying to collate that data. Okay? So please go back to your offices, form your internal committees, have your awareness sessions, and tackle the issue of sexual harassment. Because if we don't do it, we only are the ones who are getting tagged with all these lowest of everything and highest of crimes. Okay? Because it is, I mean, I don't think we should feel bad in the sense that, oh, you know, we have the highest number of cases of sexual harassment, because you can also look at it in the other way and saying women are reporting. At least we are reporting. Maybe in the other states, women are not reporting as much. But I do know, because I work in this field and I am an IC member in a lot of the government departments, we are not taking the issue as seriously as it is. We are not following the laws. We are not providing those mechanisms. And therefore, that is why we are getting these numbers. Okay? So if we truly are going to say that we are women who come from a matrilineal society who are empowered, then let us take control to the individual capacity that we have to understand gender, to understand power dynamics, and to understand how it leads to crimes. And by individually making changes, I am pretty sure 10 to 15 years from now, we will have a very different Meghalaya with very different rankings. Okay? So, very quick short, we'll go for a tea break now. Our sessions on laws are actually much more thing, but today I just wanted to give you a very brief kind of summary of the laws and also a little bit on what is the situation here in Meghalaya when it comes to two very important. We have to tackle domestic violence. We have to tackle POCSO, that is child sexual abuse. And now we have to tackle sexual harassment of women at workplace. You have the laws to do it. It is up to us now on how we ensure implementation of those laws. So thank you very much.